I'm Josh Allen, and welcome to the Baked In Podcast, where I sit down with industry innovators to uncover the unique ideas and values that are baked into their businesses and have led to extraordinary success. This podcast is presented by Busey Bank. As both my business and personal bank since 2007, I am super appreciative of their support, which really falls right in line with how they approach business. That idea of delivering the customer experience of a smaller community bank with all of the efficiencies, products, technology, and resources of the nation's largest banks. I think they pull it off with a great team and a strong dedication to their customers and their community. Busey Bank, building business, growing wealth since 1868. Today's guest is a founder whose story is a great reminder that some of the most impactful businesses don't start with a grand plan. They start with a simple observation and the willingness to take a risk. Andrew Glantz is the founder of GiftAMeal, a business he started while he was still a student, after noticing how often people take photos of their food and asking a powerful question: what if something good could happen every time that phone came out? What began as a college idea grew into a national platform, working with more than 1,000 restaurants, helping provide millions of meals to families in need, while also driving real, measurable results for the restaurants themselves. Earlier this year, GiftAMeal entered a new chapter with its acquisition by SwipeSavvy, and in this conversation, we go deep into the founder journey, how Andrew monetized a mission, built a team, navigated scale, and made the decision to sell, and what it means when purpose and performance truly align. If you enjoy these conversations, make sure to find our full episodes on YouTube. Now, let's roll. Well, Andrew, I'm thrilled to sit down with you. I mean, it's been kind of cool to watch your journey, being that you're local, and you're, I guess, now 11 years old with what you're doing. But let's go kind of back to the beginning. You're at WashU, undergrad at WashU. Came here from LA, as you just told me before we started. What attracted you most about St. Louis when you came?
Yeah, I mean, I think that at WashU, I saw that there were a lot of smart people that were really passionate about what they were doing and just wanting to learn. And they were interested in a wide variety of different things. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do when I came to WashU. And so I liked that there was a lot of opportunity that would be available. And when I was at WashU, I had an internship at a venture capital firm and got exposed to the startup world. And that's where I ended up coming up with GiftAMeal. But I didn't know a lot about St. Louis when I came out here. It was mainly just for WashU. And
what did you think you were coming into?
I thought that it was going to be a lot smaller than it was. Like, I didn't realize, the scale of the
whole city. Okay.
Yeah, the whole city and everything. And, I just didn't know a lot about what WashU or what St. Louis in general had to offer, besides like the Arch and the sports teams. Right. And so,
and WashU has done a terrific job, and certainly it really seemed to me like post 9/11, like in the 2000s and 2000 teens, it's really garnered a tremendous reputation nationally. And so,
everything that I read about WashU, everybody loved it. And, a couple people from my high school went to WashU, and so I talked to them about it, and they spoke really highly of it. So, and then when I visited, I was blown away.
Right. Well, we're thrilled to have you here, obviously, and still here. So not many folks can say they came in. We were talking about that before we started too. You've obviously now married a St. Louisan, but coming in, you had stuck around already, made the decision not to leave right after you finished school. So I think that's great. So tell me a little bit about the inspiration for GiftAMeal and sort of when that click happened for you.
Yeah, when I was at that venture capital internship, I got exposed to the startup world, and the managing partner exposed me to the idea of a profits with a purpose business model, the idea that a for-profit startup could both do well by doing good and align those incentives. And that really appealed to me because I came from a nonprofit background. I was vice president of a children's charity supporting kids across hunger, mobility, and education on campus at WashU. I co-owned a nonprofit sustainability storefront. And so the idea that I could make a scalable social impact with a for-profit company that could raise money from investors and be able to give equity to employees as a way to scale was something that appealed to me.
And you're preaching to the choir, by the way, because we became a 1% for the Planet company.
Oh, that's awesome.
A couple of years ago. So it's possible to do, and it's actually one of the most fulfilling parts about what we get to do baking bread every day is that we're, 1% of top line revenue is going to, vetted great environmental causes. And it makes me feel good to do it. And I'm sure it's the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also something consumers care about too. And so I think that finding those ways to make a difference and that every business can make a social impact is important. And in GiftAMeal's case, I figured out something that could kind of bring it into the core business model. When I was at a lunch break with the other intern at that venture capital firm, we were talking about how millennials like ourselves discover restaurants and how there were a lot of financial incentives like coupons and discounts that would cut away at margins, but not a lot building an emotional connection between the customer and the brand. And how we, look at social media to discover where to eat. We post photos of food on social media, and we care about supporting these socially conscious brands, but they just do like one-off benefit nights for a lot of places. And so I kind of pulled from a Tom Shoes buy one, give one model, the existing network of food banks, the trend of posting photos of food on social media, and combined it together into one where each time a guest takes a photo at a partner restaurant, we donate to a local food bank to give a meal to someone in need. So trying to make it seamless and easy, free for the guest, funded by the restaurant to really, again, build that sense of emotional connection with the customer.
So explain the model a little bit for those that don't understand it in terms of how it's monetized and sort of how it works. I mean, it is a business podcast, so we want to understand it a little bit. So the restaurant is paying to be part of the program, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all funded by the restaurant and free for the guests. So the restaurant pays a flat program fee to be involved for a single location. It's $69 a month for the restaurant to participate, flat rate pricing. And then if they have multiple locations, we discount based off the number of locations that participate. Then each time a guest takes the photo, GiftAMeal funds a monetary donation to a local food bank near that store to cover the food bank's cost of distributing a meal's worth of groceries, or 1.2 pounds of food, from their big facilities to the hundreds of neighborhood pantries where those in need could access it. So for a typical food bank, they showcase on their website for every dollar donated, they can distribute 4 meals worth of food. So 25 cents per meal is what's donated. For each food bank, it varies from like 10 to 50 cents per meal, depending on their operating cost.
How do you control it so that you don't run out of those 25 cents, based on the 69 cents the $69 a month that the restaurant's paying?
So we don't cap it. So, there have been cases where we ended up losing $10 or $20 a month off of the restaurant program fee. But on average, we're donating about 25 to 30% of the revenue to food banks as a for-profit company.
Okay. Is that the only revenue that you're bringing in is from
correct.
the restaurant? There's no advertising, sponsoring, there's nothing else that's coming
Correct.
in?
That's the sole revenue stream.
Okay.
And so we wanted to make it really simple for the restaurants so that way they can budget for it accordingly.
Was there anything particular about the food and the hospitality industry that was interesting to you, or was it purely the millennial, just the habit that you saw of folks taking photos and sharing photos of food?
I think it was that I liked to eat and try new restaurants and everything. And it's also a really big industry that affects a lot of people in the community, whether it's the employees of the restaurant or the customers of the restaurant. It touches a lot of people. And so it was just something that really attracted me as an industry. And it's a very tight-knit industry as well. And the sense of hospitality, I think, is also very similar to kind of my personal brand ethos.
Yeah, and I think like you were talking about, I mean, I think it's a challenge for folks in the industry to figure out how they can be helpful. How can they give back? Everybody's busy, margins are tight, things are challenging, and so by giving folks a really simple program in which to do it. You know, it's hard.
And especially not creating extra effort for staff, because staff are super busy. And so with GiftAMeal, the way the guests participate is they just scan a QR code off a table tent or menu or any other signage. It could be a to-go sticker on the packaging for takeout or delivery. They scan the QR code, it launches GiftAMeal, no app download required. They take a photo of their food, drink, or friends. When they do that, we donate to the food bank to cover a meal going to someone in need. And then the guests.
So they take the photo through the app, or they take?
Yeah, so through the QR code.
Through the QR.
So we started off with a mobile app version, and then we created an appless version that could just be launched with the QR code with no account creation or app download required. Just for scanning the QR code and snapping a photo to upload to GiftAMeal, it's one meal. And then they're invited to share that photo on their personal social media, and we give an extra meal for each platform to share on, since then they're promoting the restaurant to all their friends in an authentic way.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool. So you kind of went in all in with your own savings, is that right? Like,
Yeah.
how did you fund the beginning of this thing?
Yeah, initially it was my savings, and then ran through that and did pitch competitions and grants. So it was literally I would travel to a pitch competition, I had to play for the plane ticket, and in order to make it worth it, I'd have to get at least third place in the pitch competition.
So how many pitch competitions did you do?
So I ended up winning money in about 10 different pitch competitions. Yeah, and so
All over the country?
All over the country. About 10x our expected return on those pitch competitions. And I think that it was just a really compelling narrative. And we early on were able to get some really great case studies to showcase that the guests using GiftAMeal were returning more frequently, spending more, tipping more. That I forget what the numbers were then, but now the numbers are on average, I guess, using GiftAMeal returns 39% more frequently. They spend 20% more per visit and tip 32% more. And so we were able to showcase.
Those are pretty compelling.
Yeah. I mean, that's not going to be for every customer.
Sure.
It's not like all of a sudden.
But that's the
right. But for the customers that participate. But
and was it that way right out of the gate?
Well, I mean, we didn't do the case studies right away type of thing. And it was really hard to get restaurants on board initially because, we didn't have any proof of concept of it. And, no one wants to be the first big fish to be a part of it. And so
who was the first one? Because obviously you started here. So
yeah,
who was it in St. Louis that jumped on board quickly?
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't have a car. So I was literally like walking up and down the street through the snow between 2 and 4:30 p.m. when restaurants weren't busy to try to talk to managers or owners of restaurants and everything. And some of the first ones that joined were like Anthony's Taverna, Three Kings. And so we were able to get some of these really great restaurants on board, and they're still on GiftAMeal today. And then that we were able to go to their neighbors in their community and be like, hey, we work with them, and build it up through testimonials. And I didn't have any of the quantitative evidence yet, but we had testimonials, we had customers that were happy using it, and then we started to build out those case studies, and that's where things really changed. And then we were able to get funding. So we launched this in October 2015. In spring 2016, we received a $50K investment through the Capital Innovators Accelerator in St. Louis. It was the first time they invested in a student startup.
That's not the Arch Grants? That's different?
That's different.
That's different?
Yeah, okay. So that allowed me to kind of build throughout the St. Louis market. I graduated in May 2017. And then in November 2018, we won the $50K Arch Grant, and we raised $165K from individual angel investors. And that allowed me to bring a CTO on board. We previously outsourced the technology, and really allowed us to scale.
That's great.
Yeah.
So how big is the staff today?
Mm-hmm. So now we've been acquired by.
I know we'll get to that in a couple minutes. But in terms of prior to the acquisition, how big is GiftAMeal?
We were still a lean team. We were at 5 people.
Okay.
At our peak, and so whether we were looking at scaling the company, a lot of startups kind of go the scale or fail approach, where they just kind of throw a bunch of money at the wall and everything. And my approach was always, let's build a sustainable business model that can continue to grow on its own accord. And so we kept a lean team and lean operations and everything, and we were able to make it so that we could onboard a restaurant within 5 minutes and not take a lot of incremental work in order to have new restaurants join. And so it was really just about covering the cost of the donations, the salaries for the people on our team, and then, things like paying for sales and marketing. But besides that, we kept overhead really low.
So was the model market by market, or how did you expand outside of St. Louis?
So I started market by market, going after Chicago and Kansas City, and it was grueling. I'd hire part-time salespeople going door to door in those markets, and it just wasn't a great return on investment for the time it was taking to bring on those restaurants. And so then we had up our first chain restaurant in St. Louis with Lion's Choice in the early days, and that went really well. And saying, hey, we could work with a 30 location chain allowed us to then sign up a franchisee of Andy's Frozen Custard that had some locations outside of St. Louis in the Carolinas as well. And so we could say, okay, this can work outside of St. Louis with a chain too. And then those kind of combined allowed us to pitch other chain restaurants and have some proof of concepts to say, hey, you're not going to be the first big fish to be a part of this. And so then we were able to sign up more and more chain restaurants as a way to scale, where it didn't matter which market we were in. So we weren't going market by market. It was anywhere in the country. And a part of that kind of pivot in strategy as well was the existence of new technology called an app clip, where you could have that appless experience by launching the QR code, by scanning the QR code. We didn't have to download a mobile app because a lot of.
So how did you find these chains across the country then? I mean, were you going to trade shows, the NRA, like the National Restaurant Show? Were you showing up in places where these folks were showing up? Were you cold calling? Like, what was the? How did you do it?
Yeah, it was a blend. The conferences have been very, very helpful over the years, and that's where I could meet some of like the VP marketings and CMOs or owners of these different restaurant brands, and people that wouldn't respond to an email otherwise because it gets lost in the inbox. But yeah, doing email and LinkedIn outreach, getting introductions and networking. There wasn't just one approach; it was kind of doing it all.
And as you've been able to convince franchisees to do it, do you then go to the franchisor and try to see if you can roll up the whole?
Yeah, like
whole
one
group?
of the first restaurants in St. Louis that joined, probably about a year in, was a franchisee of Snarf's sandwiches. And they did great on the program and everything. And then a few years in, they made the introduction to corporate. And now there's all 45 plus Snarf sandwiches locations across the country that are involved in GiftAMeal. So kind of going bottom up from starting with a franchisee, going to corporate has worked. We also have places like Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken across 130 locations where they pay for the franchisees to be a part of the program. So it's unified across the brand. So it's unified social responsibility, but local to each community served. And then we have brands like Haagen-Dazs shops and Scooter's Coffee where they do an opt-in for the franchisees. So corporate kind of gives it the blessing, and then the franchisees pay for it themselves. But it's billed kind of through corporate, and
you're generally working with the local food bank wherever that franchisee happens to be. So
exactly.
You try to keep the money within the community in which the.
Yeah, we've basically mapped out every county in America and which food bank services that county. So if a restaurant signs up, we can automatically match them to a pre-vetted food bank that services the county that they're in.
That's great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, and the food, we do a lot of work with the St. Louis Area Food Bank and Meredith and the team here. They're just such an amazing group of people, and
they're
no better folks in which you can partner, as far as I'm concerned.
No, they're a great organization. We do work with Operation Food Search, and they're another great one too. And it's really incredible what these food banks across the country are doing, not just in terms of giving somebody food for the day, but in terms of nutrition education, policy advocacy, and doing things to address the root cause of hunger. Operation Food Search has some great programs for supporting pregnant and expecting mothers, in order to make sure that then their children will be healthy. And it's a really important cause.
So, and obviously, all of the scale is a challenge, and any of us that have grown a business know that. So, like, what broke first? Like, what were the kind of things that broke? What were the things that you had to fix? What were the biggest hurdles as you've gone from one to now almost 1,200 restaurants across the country? Yeah,
well, I think that being a mobile app at first was a hurdle because then we had to build up the user base as well. So when we were doing that market by market approach, when we started to not go market by market, the app was a hindrance. And then brands would say, oh, we have our own mobile app we want them to download. We don't want to have to ask them to download another app. And so the appless version was really big. And then also we could then kind of...
was that a pivotal moment? I mean, there was significant
in order
growth
to get the chains to sign up. And then we could also kind of white label it where we could put the GiftAMeal experience after they scan the QR code in the restaurant's brand colors and identity, so it feels like a native experience to the guest. So that was a really big turning point for us there. And then it was just kind of getting some of these initial brands on board, getting more case studies done. We did another case study where we saw the guests at Starbird Chicken, a brand on the West Coast, that the guests were giving a 2/3 star higher rating for guest satisfaction that used GiftAMeal.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And so then
were they letting you into their information? Like, how was that metric?
Yeah.
How'd you come up with the metric?
So they gave us a trackable link for their guest feedback survey through Tattle that they put at the end of the GiftAMeal experience that they also had on their receipts, so they could compare the guests that came from GiftAMeal and ones that didn't to see their guest satisfaction ratings. And then we added in a feature where at the end of the GiftAMeal experience, we can prompt the guest to write a review on Yelp or Google for the business. And so we could take these happy customers and encourage them to spread the word from the restaurants. So it helps them from a reputation management standpoint too.
Well, yeah, and I guess to a certain degree, you've already gotten the engagement because they've already made the commitment to take the photo and post it, which is a lot more than most folks are willing to do.
Yeah,
so it's probably not that big of a reach then to ask them to
correct.
do that.
And since it was free for the guest and funded by the brands, the guest is attributing the sense of gratitude to the brand, but they feel responsible for it because they're triggering the impact by taking the photo. And so that was something that we saw as kind of like the secret sauce of why these customers are developing that sense of an emotional connection, why they're feeling so positive about the brand after the GiftAMeal experience is because they're thankful that the brand is funding something that's helping the community.
Right. What else broke once you got? What's been the biggest challenge? You got the.
I mean, COVID was a big factor. I mean, if you're talking to everybody in the industry, I mean, we acted really quickly in early March before the restaurants were shut down. We pivoted to, it used to just be dine in, then we pivoted to be allowed takeout and delivery photos as well for people to participate. We pushed
and that's continued.
Cards. Yeah, it's continued. I mean, now we work with over half of our restaurants are in fast casual or QSR, and so that was really important. And we acted really quickly and told our restaurants if they were struggling, then we wouldn't charge them their monthly program fee. And we pushed gift cards. We don't do it anymore, but we launched a podcast to spread the word about what our restaurants were doing during the time, push out on social media, and just everything we could to support. And we retained through 2020 about 70% of our restaurants, including the ones that closed down. So that was overall something that allowed us to weather the storm and be able to make it through. And the silver lining was the pivot to include takeout and delivery because that ended up being instrumental for the business.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Do you get, is the engagement rates different between dine-in and takeout? Like, do you?
It really just depends on how the restaurant promotes it. Like we have brands that put like a sticker on the sandwich wrapping type of thing for the to-go orders, and that works really well. Lee's Chicken.
They put the QR code as well on the sticker?
Yeah, Lee's Chicken has it printed on the cups itself in the side containers. So then the engagement rates are pretty constant for whatever type of orders. Versus like, if we have Gingham's a diner in St. Louis, they have some of the highest engagement on GiftAMeal because they're a diner. So they got a lot of customers coming in, a lot of tables, and they have table tents up on every table. And so they got a lot of usage. But we also have brands like Scooter's Coffee that are drive-in only coffee shops. So their promo is a window decal and sometimes some card handouts. And,
really? Now, are you responsible for the marketing piece of that? Do you guys fund the table tent and fund the cup? Mm-hmm. Do you participate in that, or are you just encouraging them to drive the engagement as best they can?
Yeah, it's a good question. For the independent restaurants, we have a plan option that includes pre-printed table tents and table stickers and card handouts for just an extra $10 a month. So that way they don't have to have any extra work. Otherwise, they're responsible for printing and distributing materials, but we'll do design work for free if they want to be in their own brand identity and everything. So our designer will create things to be in their brand colors, their fonts, their photography.
So you have that in-house, the design?
Yeah, exactly. And so that makes it, again, we want to make it really easy for them, whether it's at the administrative level, because sometimes it's just one marketing person and they're covering everything for the business, and then also for the store level staff, because we don't want to add extra work for anybody.
Right. I mean, you've been intentional. You mentioned before you started that obviously the Arch grant requirement is to stay in St. Louis for a year after receiving the grant. So, I mean, in many respects, you're building, mobile technology outside of the traditional parts of the country where this kind of stuff is happening. What's happening in St. Louis relative to technology? Have you found that to be a limiting factor by being in St. Louis? Has it been beneficial? Like, how do you view what role St. Louis has played in your success?
I definitely say an accelerating factor, not a limiting factor at all.
In what way?
Because the startup ecosystem here is so strong. It's so collaborative. There are so many free resources. There are different funding opportunities like Arch grants. There's a Scandalaire Center at WashU for providing mentorship, advice, networking, connections, and support. We also won a $20K Global Impact Award prize through the Scandalaire Center at WashU in April 2020 when the restaurants were shut down. So that helped us bridge the gap. There's Cortex and CIC that are here. There's Tech Artista and T-Rex and the Capital Innovators. They're just I-10, all the other universities like SLU, Webster. Like it's just there's so many resources in St. Louis, and it's lower cost of living and lower cost of doing business in St. Louis. As a startup, we were able to keep costs lower being in St. Louis than being in Silicon Valley. And it was just such a collaborative ecosystem for getting introductions and for those early days and everything, and tapping into like the WashU alumni network and everything. So
I think I'm going to take this really 1 minute speech here and try to sell it to Explore St. Louis as an ad, because I don't know that anybody could articulate the value of being here as well as you just did, which is really great. It's especially from somebody young and somebody who didn't grow up here. I mean, that opportunity is, it's really cool.
And even for just building momentum and everything, like we got some great media coverage in the early days, and we didn't have a lot of other proof of concepts when I could go to restaurants and say, hey, look at this article of us in the Post-Dispatch and the St. Louis Business Journal, and we won this pitch competition. It like was all things that were data points to build momentum for us to help convince early adopters to join.
Yeah, and St. Louis it's just such a wonderful community. I wouldn't be sitting here 33 years after founding the bakery if it wasn't for the fact that St. Louis, there's nothing they want to support more than somebody who comes from somewhere else or goes somewhere to learn something, brings it home and tries to build it here. And so I think that's great. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but then I want to hear about the acquisition and sort of what's next for you.
Sounds good.
Did you know that businesses can help protect our planet with every sale? That's the idea behind 1% for the Planet, a global movement where companies pledge 1% of their top-line revenue to environmental causes. Since 2002, members have given nearly $700 million to nonprofits tackling critical issues like climate change, conservation, and food insecurity. At Companion Baking, we're proud to be a part of this mission. We're contributing through local partnerships, like donating $50,000 in baked goods to the St. Louis Area Food Bank and supporting regenerative agriculture through our partnership with ADM. Learn more about how 1% for the Planet is driving change at 1%fortheplanet.org. So let's talk a little bit about the acquisition, because you talked about, you figured out how to monetize this business, you grew it, you're 11 years old, because this just happened, right? I mean, I just reached out to you after I read it. I think it was in the Business Journal that I saw about it. So tell me, what was it that brought you onto their radar, and what was it about them that excited you about the opportunity to continue to grow and expand?
Yeah, I mean, we had built GiftAMeal to the point that we could be a break-even, profitable business, and we had gotten some interest from a couple companies over the last couple of years that were interested in acquiring us, and so we started to have those conversations as a way that GiftAMeal could plug into a larger company and have more resources to be able to grow. And so that was something that sounded appealing to me. And
what do you think, before we get there, what was limiting your ability to grow? Because obviously you were still growing, but was it just that it was a in its own ecosystem, and you'd have to sell folks into a whole system that wasn't connected to any other kind of technology? Was that the limiting factor?
Right. It was a single product company, whereas like if we were in a part of another company that they already use one of their other products, then it's easier to tap into them and be like, oh, we also have this product offering with GiftAMeal, and to be able to make those connections. And also, limited team and funding. I mean, we last raised $500K, including a $100K growth grant from Arch Grants in 2021. And that was supposed to last us 18 months, and it lasted us all the way until the exit. But with that, we had to stay lean.
Right.
And so being able to have additional funding to grow and grow the team further and things like that as well. And so then in September, I met the CEO of Swipe Savvy, Jason, at a restaurant conference, restaurant technology conference, and we started talking. And Swipe Savvy has a point of sale offering and kind of a unified tech stack for restaurants.
And you mentioned they're kind of like Square and Toast.
Yeah, exactly. So kind of an alternative to them, where you could kind of have everything in one ecosystem, have it be more customizable, have more offerings for customer engagement and rewards.
Any particular kind of restaurants that they service most specifically? Are they mainly fast casual or small coffee houses, or they do full service restaurants?
All types. Mainly chain restaurants. But yeah, they also work with independents as well. And they work with 18 other industries too. And so they had this really great technology, and they also have this Points with Purpose program. And so we're very mission aligned, and they were looking for an offering that could kind of be in that cause marketing space. And so we started talking partnership when we met at the conference, and those conversations continued and became acquisition about how 1 + 1 could equal 11 type of thing, and if we really joined forces. And so then we announced this not too long ago, and have been with them for about a month, and I've continued on, and they've
So
been
let's go. Let's take a step back. How did
Yeah.
it feel? Like, what was that? What was that moment like for you of signing that contract, of taking something that you had grown from nothing for 10 years and transitioning that off to somebody new, and obviously staying on, and we'll talk about that. But I don't want to gloss over this moment of acquisition.
I mean, it was surreal. The acquisition happened, and we were integrating the companies and everything. It's a lot to integrate two companies all together. And we announced it 2 weeks after the legal documents all went through publicly. And so it didn't really feel real until that happened. But the company's based in Orlando, and so I was flying down to Orlando and working with their team in person and everything. That started to feel more real. It's definitely something that
Was your team excited?
Yeah, this was something that was, a good opportunity for us, and be able to really expand our impact, work with more restaurants, provide more meals, and take the vision of what I founded with GiftAMeal and allow that to continue to thrive. So I was happy with the potential to exit, but have it not be an exit where I was walking out the door, but to be able to continue to grow and have a company that would be excited about that.
Sure. So what is your role now?
So I am now technically VP Strategic Partnerships at Swipe Savvy. So I'm still in charge of kind of giving me autonomy over GiftAMeal as one of their product offerings. So I'm still kind of running GiftAMeal as kind of CEO of GiftAMeal, but then also taking on this larger role within Swipe Savvy to look at how they can work with other companies, whether it's other food tech companies or other types of companies in other industries, and how they can kind of come together to form strategic partnerships can help them grow even further in order to make an impact across all areas of
Are you
the
enjoying
business.
that role? And
Yeah, no, they've been very welcoming and everything, and there's a lot of white space, and they're definitely a very innovative company and constantly creating new and exciting tools to use. So it's been great so far.
has your team in St. Louis been able to grow? I mean, now that you have a little bit more support and capital behind
So
it?
the team is now primarily through Swipe Savvy's team that they have in Orlando.
Okay.
And so then they will give me access to their resources and their team as well.
So what's going to be different in the next 3 to 5 years for GiftAMeal post acquisition?
Hopefully instead of 1,200 restaurants in 46 states and we're about to hit 3 million meals donated.
That's congratulations.
Thank you. Hopefully we'll be all 50 states, maybe international, and working with tens of thousands of restaurants and providing millions of meals to those in need annually. And, I'd also love to see if we could expand outside of the restaurant industry into other industries at some point, maybe potentially other causes as well. And
Because you said they play in other spaces, right?
Exactly.
So that opportunity exists.
yeah, and so my priorities with the acquisition was at first to make sure that it was seamless so that there were no hiccups for our partner restaurants or for our users. So we sent out an announcement to our partner restaurants to let them know, and to our users and everything. But if somebody ignored my outreach and stuff, then they wouldn't know anything had changed because there was no change to the user experience. Right. And that was something that was really important to me in order to kind of preserve our
Any
quality.
unexpected feedback from the announcement publicly?
No, it's been very supportive, and it's very encouraging, and I'm just incredibly grateful to a lot of the people that have been involved formally, whether as a team member, as an advisor, an investor, a judge in a pitch competition, somebody who had a one-off coffee conversation to give advice or make introductions, or wrote a media article about us, or there's so many different people, or to my professors at WashU that help give advice. There's just such an amazing collaborative ecosystem. And so even just announcing it with my LinkedIn post and, seeing the congratulations come in from some of these people who have been a part of the journey, was just very heartwarming and moving for me.
And you're obviously a very passionate guy. I mean, it comes out in the way that you speak about what you've built and what you do. How have you been able to maintain the culture that you built? I mean, you mentioned that there were mission alignments, which is obviously super important, and you've been able to hold on to that. You feel good about that?
Yeah, no
30
change.
days in,
no change. So that's been fantastic and something that was very important in the acquisition.
Were you anxious about that?
I think when I was talking acquisition in general with other companies, but it seemed like it was going to be aligned with Swipe Savvy, and obviously things are different when you're talking pre-acquisition versus post-acquisition, but I wasn't too concerned about it. But I was glad that things ended up being the same as I expected.
Right. Yeah, because you can have that. There is that fear that the mission gets diluted in an acquisition. Maybe it doesn't have to change, but it just gets watered down a little bit as it starts to grow and expand, and so. Holding on to that and fighting for that is going to be obviously a big piece of it. But you've been given assurances that you feel good about. So
yeah, absolutely. I think they're very supportive of our mission and want to keep that intact. And otherwise they wouldn't have acquired us.
Right. Has your identity changed?
My personal identity?
Yeah.
In a way, I mean, I think that it's. Since I'm still doing GiftAMeal and staying involved with it, it's still very much like that is kind of my identity.
You still have the purple T-shirt on.
Yeah, exactly.
That's been a big part of your look for the last 10 years.
But not the same shirt. But yeah, no, I think that it's still a part of my identity. The shift in mindset, I mean, I still have that kind of chip on my shoulder to prove myself now that they've taken the chance on me to acquire GiftAMeal, to be able to prove, hey, I can help us reach these growth targets for GiftAMeal at Swipe Savvy. But we had very supportive investors. We had 19 investors during our time at GiftAMeal. And they were very supportive, but even if they weren't knocking down my door, I'd feel the weight of that on my shoulders of having somebody else's money in the company. And so, be able to have an exit and have that lifted off my shoulders is, I don't know if that'd be an identity thing, but, is something.
Were they happy with the exit? They were.
Yeah. And it was unanimous agreement for the exit.
Terrific.
And, so, that was something really great to see. And, now I'm technically just an employee. And so that's like a little bit of a difference of a mindset, but you're still, I'm working at an innovative, growing company and everything. And I'm still working on GiftAMeal now, just with new challenges and opportunities as well that are given to me in my role. So that's been very exciting.
Very cool. Well, it's such a cool story. So I got a couple of little lightning round questions I just want to ask. So give me one restaurant partner story that still gives you chills.
It still gives me chills. I'm trying to think of one that would pop into mind. Okay, there's one. It's a restaurant that shut down now. I won't name them, but it was a pizza restaurant in St. Louis, and this was when I was still a student in college. And I go there, and the owner asked if I liked meat pizza, and I was like, yeah, sure. And I already eaten lunch that day. It was the afternoon. And they come back with these 2 giant pizzas, and I eat a slice and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, do you not like it?" And I was like, "Oh no, I do. I had a slice." And they kind of pressured me to eat this entire pizza, over the course of 40 minutes before they would sign up for GiftAMeal. And then I got a parking ticket outside as well. So
they're no longer partners.
No, they closed down. But that's why.
How about the hardest no that you got early on?
The hardest no. I mean, it's none of them kind of pop into mind because I got so many no's. It was like I got 95% no's in the early days, and I would just tend to know that, okay, restaurants are busy. I'm not going to take it personally. Some are different financial situations and everything. And so I'll just kind of let it roll off my back and keep positive relationships. And sometimes it just took time.
Were you always the one selling, or do you have a team that does this?
Had other people that joined the team for sales as well. And
I mean, because speaking to that was one of the first things that I did because I had to, because I took it too personally.
Yeah.
And so it was much easier because I made the bread, right? So now you've said no to what I made. not just saying no to the business.
Yeah, if they shut down your baby type of thing, it's hard. And I mean,
so as quick as I could, and the people that sell for me are better at it than I am anyway, but it is a load off.
I mean, I had people that like straight up told me that this wasn't going to work type of thing, and I would keep a smile on my face. I would ask them their advice and keep it a positive interaction, and then a few years later, they would remember the conversation a little differently with rose-colored glasses, being like, oh, I gave you advice in your early days, and look at where you've come. And I'd be like, yes, thank you for taking the time with me then. And then they would end up being a part of the business and like signing up their restaurant or something, like they're making an introduction for me. Or so I think that for me, it was always about taking rejection in stride and learning from it and just keeping our relationships positive and not getting defensive.
Right. Well, that's good. Yeah. What about advice for founders trying to balance profit and purpose? So for those of us that are trying to do it, what's one thing that comes out of this for you to sort of work through that?
I would say that there's a few things I'd say are important. You could kind of think about it. This is nothing that's official or formal, but call it like the ABCs of a profits with a purpose company. Being authentic, having a branding fit, and being consistent. So authentic, when you're doing something that makes a social impact and you're a for-profit company, you need to make sure it's authentic and genuine, because otherwise people can sniff out inauthenticity and it's going to hurt your brand rather than help it. So making sure whatever you're doing is actually making the impact that you're saying. Second is that there's a branding fit and that it aligns with what you're doing. So that way the customers can understand why you're making that impact. So whether it's something that has to do with the business itself, like with GiftAMeal, you're eating food, it's helping provide a meal, or for a business that is on the coast, and so they're doing something with ocean conservation, or a business that the founder's family member has been affected by breast cancer or something. It's like something that's core to the story of that business. And then third is consistency, in terms of making sure that across all messaging you're consistent, the way you're making the impact is consistent, so that way it can drive home for the customer that this is something that's a part of your core ethos as a business, and that they understand it and they think about that social impact when they think about your business, so that way it can deliver the business impact for you as well, of customers choosing to support your business because you give back.
Well, that's awesome. Not the first time you've talked that through, but that was...
I do some guest lecturing at some colleges and stuff, and that was something that I randomly came up with that I tossed on the slide.
Right. Well, I think it's great. I'm super excited for you. Congratulations on the sale and the future and the new baby, which you mentioned, 6 months old. So you got a lot to look forward to, and I hope that we stay in touch and hear more about it in the future.
Appreciate it. And shameless plug, if there's any restaurants listening out there, we're always looking for more to join. So you can go to giftameal.com/partner to learn more.
Yes, please. All right. Thanks, Andrew. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you, sir. Thanks so much for joining me today. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed sharing these insights from folks I truly admire. Be sure and follow the show in your favorite podcast player to be alerted to newly released episodes. And share a comment if you have any feedback or future contributor recommendations.